When I finally understood her pain, it was already too late. I remember that day clearly, the day I stood in the quiet hospital room, holding her hand, whispering words she could no longer hear. The room was still. The only sound was the soft beeping of a machine beside her bed. I wanted to tell her everything I never said, but my voice trembled, and my tears spoke for me. All my life, I thought I knew my mother. I thought she was strong, unshakable, and sometimes difficult. I told myself she didn't understand me, that she was old-fashioned, that she never tried to see things from my side. But now, as I stood beside her frail body, all those thoughts felt small. I used to complain about how she'd worry too much, how she'd call me every day just to ask, "Have you eaten?" I would sigh, roll my eyes, and say, "Mom, I'm fine. Stop worrying." Now I'd give anything to hear her voice again, even if it was just to ask if I'd eaten. There's something cruel about realizing love only after it's gone. You begin to replay moments in your head. Words you said, words you didn't, small things that seemed meaningless at the time. But when you look back, they become heavy, like stones in your heart. That day, I stood in that hospital room thinking about the years I wasted being proud, distant, and cold. I thought about the time she waited for me to visit, the messages she sent that I left unread. And most of all, I thought about her eyes, those eyes that always looked at me with love, even when I didn't deserve it. I didn't realize that every time she nagged, it was love. Every time she argued, it was because she cared. Every time she cried, it was because she was afraid of losing me. But I learned all that too late. I grew up in a small town, the kind where everyone knows each other, and life moves slowly. My mother raised me alone after my father passed away when I was 10. She worked as a tailor, sitting by the window with her sewing machine, stitching clothes for other families while I did my homework beside her. She never complained, even when her hands ached or her eyes grew tired. She just smiled and said, "As long as we have each other, we'll be fine." I believed her. And for a while, we really were fine. But as I grew older, something changed. I wanted more freedom, more space, more independence. When I got my first job in the city, I was so excited. I told her I'd visit every weekend. She smiled and said, "Don't worry about me. Just take care of yourself." At the time, I didn't realize what those words meant. I thought she was being strong, but deep down, I think she was preparing herself for the loneliness that would follow. Life in the city was fast. Work, friends, deadlines, everything seemed urgent. I'd call her sometimes, but not as often as I should have. When she'd call, I'd be too busy or too tired to talk. Sometimes I'd silence her calls and think, "I'll call her later," but later never came. When I finally did visit, I noticed new lines on her face, and her hair had turned a little grayer. She'd always ask if I was eating well, if I was sleeping enough, if my boss was treating me right. I'd laugh and say, "Mom, you worry too much." She'd smile, but I could see something in her eyes, a quiet sadness she tried to hide. Still, I told myself she was fine. I told myself I'd make more time for her when things slowed down, but life never really slows down until it's forced to. It started with small things, missed calls, short visits, excuses that sounded believable even to me. Then one day, she told me she wasn't feeling well. She said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. "Just a little tired," she said. I told her to rest and promised to visit soon. But weeks passed, and I got caught up in my own world again. When I finally went home, I noticed she looked thinner. Her hands shook a little as she poured me tea. I asked if she'd seen a doctor, and she said, "Oh, it's nothing, just age catching up." Something inside me told me to take her words seriously, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to think about anything being wrong. I didn't want to face the idea of losing her. Then, one evening, I got a call from a neighbor. They said my mother had fainted. I froze. I don't remember how fast I drove home, but when I got to the hospital, She was lying there with tubes around her, still trying to smile. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My voice cracked. She looked at me, weak but calm. "I didn't want to bother you," she said. That sentence broke me. She didn't want to bother me, her only child, the one she worked her whole life for, the one she stayed up nights worrying about. I stayed by her side for a few days. She'd ask me to go home and rest, but I refused. I wanted to make up for the time I'd lost. I wanted to show her that I cared. But no matter how much I did, I knew deep down it wasn't enough. Doctors said she needed surgery. She was scared, but tried not to show it. The night before, she held my hand and said, "If anything happens, promise me you'll forgive yourself." I didn't understand what she meant then. I told her not to say such things. The surgery went well at first, but then complications arose. Her health declined slowly over the next few months. I moved back home to take care of her, and for the first time in years, we spent every day together again. Some nights I'd find her looking at old photos. She'd smile and say, "We had good times, didn't we?" I'd nod, fighting back tears, because even though she was right there beside me, I already felt like I was losing her. It was a rainy afternoon when she called me to her room. The sound of rain hitting the window filled the silence. She looked tired, but her eyes were gentle. "Sit with me," she said. I sat beside her, and she reached for my hand. "I want to tell you something," she said softly. She told me about the nights she cried after I moved away, how she'd wait by the phone just to hear my voice, how she'd walk to the market and see mothers with their grown children, laughing together, and how it made her heart ache. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to make you feel guilty," she said. "You had your own life to live." Her voice trembled, and I could see tears welling in her eyes. I felt a lump in my throat. All this time I thought she was strong and content, but she was lonely, deeply lonely. I tried to apologize, but the words wouldn't come out. I just held her hand tighter. She smiled through her tears and whispered, "It's okay. You'll understand one day." Those words stayed with me. A few weeks later, her condition worsened. She slipped into a quiet sleep that she never woke up from. That night, I sat by her bed, watching the rise and fall of her chest until it stopped. The room was silent, the kind of silence that breaks you from the inside. I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. I understand now." But it was too late. I realized her pain wasn't just physical, it was emotional. It was the pain of waiting, of loving without being seen, of being forgotten by the one person she loved most. And as I held her hand one last time, I understood everything she had ever done for me. Every word, every sacrifice, every sleepless night. It all made sense. After her funeral, the house felt empty. The air itself seemed quieter. I walked through each room, touching the things she'd left behind. Her old sewing machine, her glasses, her teacup still on the shelf. It felt like she was still there, watching me, forgiving me silently. I found an old box in her drawer, filled with letters she had written but never sent. Most were addressed to me. One of them said, "I miss you every day, but I don't want to make you feel guilty. Just know that I love you, even from afar." Another said, "I'm proud of you. You've grown into someone strong. Just don't forget where your home is." Reading those letters broke me in ways I can't explain. I realized that while I was chasing success and independence, she was holding on to memories. I stayed in that house for weeks. I cooked her favorite meals, listened to the same old songs she loved, and sat by the window where she used to sew. For the first time, I let myself feel everything: the guilt, the love, the grief, the longing. People say time heals all wounds, but I think some wounds don't heal. They become part of you. They teach you how to love better, how to listen more, how to never take someone for granted again. Now, every time I see an old woman walking alone, I stop and smile at her. I ask if she needs help, because maybe she too is someone's mother. waiting for a call that never comes. I've learned that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about time, about being present, about showing up, especially when it's inconvenient. It's been 5 years since my mother passed away. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear her voice, soft, warm, calling my name like she used to. I keep one of her letters framed on my wall. It says, "You'll understand my love one day." And she was right. I do now. I've forgiven myself, though it took time. I know she wouldn't want me to live in regret. Instead, I try to live in a way that would make her proud. I visit her grave often. I bring her flowers, lilies, her favorite. I talk to her like she's still here. I tell her about my day, my work, my life, and in those quiet moments, I feel her presence. If I could go back in time, I'd pick up every call. I'd visit more. I'd listen more. But I can't. So I share this story for others. For those who still have someone waiting for their call, for their visit, for their time. Don't wait like I did. Don't realize their worth too late. Because one day, silence will answer instead. And when that day comes, you'll understand their pain, just like I did. But maybe, if you listen now, you won't have to learn it the hard way.